Hey guys, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us for another weekly episode of D-Side Chats. Today we're going to focus on several different technology tools that data scientists typically need to have and to use in order for them even to do any of the work that they are required to really help us as mankind, as a species, to further progress. Now, before I continue, I want you to do two things for me. Subscribe to the channel and then like the video. All right, thank you. Now, uh, last time, last episode, we actually went to different programming languages for data science. That's going to be, again, Python, Scala, and R. You're going to have those three programming languages all together that data scientists in general use. But today we're going to focus on essentially the tools and frameworks that uh, that can use those three, or rather that you typically would use to help you program in those three and then effectively save your work. So version control is essentially, as the name describes itself, it gives you control of the version, whatever you need it to be. So you can do version control on different files, which you might do with like documents. You might have the first draft of your essay, and then you have the second draft of your essay, and the third, and the fourth, and you have the final draft, and that draft is what you want to use. But then you give the final draft to a friend, and you realize that you might need to make some more adjustments, and so now you create like a final draft, like version 1, version 2. So like, again, there's essentially, you are always consistently doing things that are essentially versioning your work, so then that you can reuse it another time or go back to another time for edits. And that's essentially what a version control system is, a VCS. You are essentially saving these files in a particular format that's going to be tagged with a specific identifier, just so you know this is this version of this code right here. And so what do people use? Well, there's typically two types of way to manage your version control system. And there's a bunch of them. You have SVN as one. But typically what I go for is, and what most people go for is GitHub. Now, GitHub is essentially a company that was bought off by Microsoft some time ago that manages version control inside of majority of programming projects. And so you can do this with any language too, and there's actually a lot of nice identifiers, so you can do searches of different repositories with or different coding repositories, which are basically giant folders that hold all your stuff linked to an account that you create. And essentially, they're tagged with essentially what type of language you use, the percentage of the language that is part of your repository. They do those type of checks. And I'm actually going to share my screen a little bit later inside the video, but I'll share my screen so you actually can see how to do that. And so I'm going to talk about it a little bit so you can understand what data scientists use typically or advise to use. But this is something that you're going to have to know if you want to be a data scientist and be an effective data scientist. You want to be able to version your code so that it's easier for even yourself to look at things. And this doesn't have to be a giant software project. You actually can look into even notebooks. You can do this with notebooks. And if you're familiar with data science and familiar with Python, or at least have been trying to toy around with it, you might have heard of Jupyter Notebooks. And those essentially just a playground environment for you to put code in. It relies on the stuff that you have saved and installed on your computer. But once you have that set up, all you gotta do is open up a Jupyter Notebook, and then you can go and run the code you need to run, and in the different cells, so to speak, and then you can essentially run the entire process using that. You can train your models that way. You can do feature engineering that way. There's nothing wrong from an ad hoc point of view to use notebooks. But you can even save those and version those. And that's exactly what I recommend really for anyone that's going to the field of data science, is that they have GitHub and they have maybe these type of notebooks to be adding here. But you need to know how to use GitHub and even to use that. And that's kind of why I'm advising right now. I'm advising really anyone that's watching this video that wants to learn more about data science, look into GitHub. Go and actually start using it so that you will be better off when it comes towards representing your work. So number one is GitHub. Again, this is the first tool that I want everyone to really recognize and use. GitHub. Use it. So right now we're just going to go and briefly talk about the GitHub and PyCharm integrations. I described what GitHub was earlier. Now I wanted to talk more about how you can integrate them together. Well, first off, I want to start off by showing how you can do that maybe from the start, from starting with the new repo. And so firstly, I want to say that this is a repo I just created today. And so if you want to create your own repo with no code, you can easily do that. Go up, click this plus sign up here, go to new repository. You're able to change the owner. Then you can put the repository name, put the description. You can choose whether you want private or public. So you can choose those. And then as you see here, there's code here. But when you do that from the start, there will be nothing. There will be no one, no code here that can be used. And so I just want to list out. Now, how to actually get code up there. You normally do a git add and git commit. And so I'll do that. I'll add something kind of random. So let's say I want to create a new Python file. As you see, this is stuff I already have up there. Let's say I want to create something called classification. So I click that, click enter. Now, note here. Now, I've already integrated PyCharm with GitHub, but anytime you add a brand new file, it asks you whether you want to add this file to Git. This is one of the main reasons why I even have this integration in this app to begin with using PyCharm, because of this ease and seamless integration. Now, this is available in other IDEs. It is available in other IDEs, but I really like that this does this for you automatically. And another thing in particular that's going to be very helpful is that, again, this is PyCharm. So this is going to be centered around Python. So if you're going to be developing in Python, I really suggest PyCharm. You can use the other IDEs if you want, like VS Code. You can use Atom. But PyCharm is designed to be for Python development. So I really highly suggest that you do that. But anyway, we're going to use this click add button here. So automatically, this file is added. Now this will be an empty file. I'm not adding any code in here, nothing special, nothing unique. So let's say you add this file. So the next thing you can do, I'm on a Mac, and so I do Command K, but you can also directly go and hover over it, right click it, go to Git, and you can say commit file. And then this is where this will pop up. And so normally you have to do the bash commands and so on and so forth, which might be confusing for some, but if you want to stick in a UI, this is the way to do it. So here I'm going to say adding dummy classification Python module. And that's what I'm adding right here, so I just click commit now, and then it commits that file. So as you see now, that file is committed. Now what do I want to do? I want to push this now. I want to actually push this this new file. So what I can do is I can go over to VCS, go to Git, go all the way down to push, then I can click that. Now this is without using keyboard commands. There are keyboard commands that you can use, make it easier. You can add a file. You can do Command K for committing a file, Command Shift K to go and push the file. But you can do everything through menu options up here. And so what you can see is when you refresh, you got classification. But now let's say you want to change it. Let's say you want to add something. Let's add something. Let's use this. So we're going to import the same stuff. We're not going to create a brand new model. This is a custom model, by the way. This is using what's called a median deviation. I created this from scratch. I wanted to use it for a TikTok video, but I can also use it for here too. And so if you're interested, please comment below so you can learn more about this particular type model. But this is just a tutorial just using SciPy. Then we can go to classification. We can copy and paste that in here. This is a random loss function. And what we are going to do is we're going to assume that these are binary valued, there's going to be obscene data of binary values, and these are going to be the probabilities. So this is essentially just a loss function that manages this, and I want to state that the probability to predict something must be higher. So how can I do that? Well, let's do just a basic loss function here. As you see this, this is more or less just going to be the absolute difference between each of these values here, and between the probabilities and the non-probabilities between the actuals, and we take the deviance here and we use the power. So we just look at the median. So this is still just the median deviation, but now this is for the absolute differences between the actual probabilities and the non. And so that's how it's going to be, and these are the predictions. So we're going to delete this because we don't need this anymore, but this is the new function we added to the classification module. So now we're adding median deviation loss function to classification module. So let's commit that now. And there you didn't see me do anything, and that was because I used the keyboard commands. So now I click Command Shift K to push to master. I click that. I'm pushing to master. Push successful, and I refresh, and there we go. You see it. Alright, so hopefully this was helpful and useful for you guys as you learned about the integrations and how useful PyCharm plus GitHub is for Python. Thank you for watching my video. Really appreciate it. Hope that you learned a lot. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to go and add it to the comment section. I will post another video which will be more of a Q&A session where I'll answer the question from the comment section, and I'll add that to my channel, and then hopefully you come back and watch. Now remember, subscribe to the channel, and this will help really both of us. It'll help us in two ways. One, to help us defeat the algorithm together, make sure that more of these can reach more people. And then two, we are bounded for life, or at least until one of us dies.